What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, welcome to Tuesdays with Turbo that aren't actually on Tuesdays, but I'm still Turbo, and it is indeed Thursday. Run that back again. But yes, it is that time of the week, and because of the holiday and the long weekend, um, it's a thing in insurance where when folks can't talk to their insurance agent for an extended period of time, that Monday or the next day back is absolutely insane, and that kind of spilled over into Tuesday. So didn't have a whole lot of time to put this together for Tuesday, but it's Thursday. Still wanted to get this video out to you guys and gals, and for those of you that your kids are home from school today, go ahead, bring them around, use this as education. We can do this teaching with Turbo. But today we are going to, and for those of you that do not know me, my name is Ryan Turbo Jackson. I am your insurance resource, and I really enjoy educating people about their insurance coverages, their insurance policies, and in segments like this today, which I do have a new name for, just kind of some everyday applications. And I had a really good a really good response from our the video I did where we talked about what type of insurance or coverages a content creator could or should have. So I decided, well, let's kind of make this a regular thing, and let's talk about some professions that people might have, some hobbies or side hustles someone might have, and just kind of throw this out there, being like, hey, if you do these things, these are some coverages, these are some policies that you might want to look for, and kind of give you some reasons why. And so the name of this segment is Hats Off with Turbo. And what we're going to talk about in these segments is where we're going to try on a lot of hats, meaning a lot of professions, and I'm going to kind of break down what type of coverages someone would need if they do have this profession, hobby, side hustle, so that you kind of know how to protect yourself. And if you are doing it as a side hustle or a hobby, and it does become more, kind of the next steps to take. So today we're going to be talking about photographers, and let's see here, and what type of coverages a photographer would need. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, Ryan, photographers, I mean, there's what really kind of coverage would you need? I mean, would we just be talking about coverage for cameras, coverage for lenses? Yes, but it does go further in depth. There's 4 coverages that every photographer should really think about carrying. And when it comes to your lenses, any of your equipment or gear, those could be covered on your home policy. However, if you do make more than a certain amount of money doing this hobby or side hustle, then your insurance company might want to, or might require you to go to a commercial policy like this. So let's break down the 4 coverages that every photographer should have, and I'll give you real life examples as to why these are so important, because it's every single photographer's worst nightmare. What happens if there's a memory card failure? What happens if you run into that bridezilla and you didn't get the right photos? Because a lot of people just think of photographers as just point and shoot, get the picture. And there are some, let's say a wildlife or nature photographer that they really, I mean, technically, they are once in a lifetime photos, but if you're taking a picture of this really cool bird, the really cool bird isn't going to be that upset if you don't capture the moment correctly. So let's talk about people. When you're photographing people, weddings, any big event, I mean, if you stop and think about it, a photographer is responsible for capturing some of the most important and precious days of someone's life. So when we talk about, the bridezillas and, just the mechanical failures, These things happen, and yes, they are every single photographer's worst nightmare. But how can you protect yourself against things like that? If there's, what happens if either you or an assistant knock over something and break it? What if you're loading your camera and your gear up and you drop it and it breaks? There's many different things to kind of think about when it comes to this type of thing. So let's jump into it. Let's get off to our first coverage here is professional liability. And what do we mean by professional liability? Well, in this case, we're kind of talking about a coverage in the insurance industry that we refer to as errors and omissions. In a lot of my videos, we're talking about liability lawsuit. Well, this one's kind of different, so bear with me. And this is, like we talked about, your picture yourself as a photographer, and you're taking photos of a wedding. I mean, that's kind of one of the main gigs of a photographer, and one of the main things that you cannot recreate. I mean, most of the time, let's say you're taking senior photos or engagement photos or something like that. Those you can kind of recreate, but when it's a wedding, that's a one-time thing. Hopefully, but that that event is a one-time thing. So, one of the examples here is, like I was mentioning, a faulty memory card. You've been contracted to photograph an event, and your memory card fails, causing you to lose all of your photos. You are devastated, and your client makes a claim against you for failure to deliver photographs as promised. Your professional liability coverage could protect you and your business against claims of negligence, even if you haven't made a mistake and the loss was caused by a technical glitch. So yes, it would stink. I guarantee, your clients would be very upset. However, this is one of those things where it comes down to your reputation. And whereas if you didn't have this coverage, I've seen and heard of photographers being sued or their name run through the mud because they refused to pay the money back that they were paid to do the job because it wasn't their fault. So in this case, this is a COA, cover your ass, and your reputation would go a long ways if, yes, this is my mistake, this is what happened. Let's go to my professional liability coverage and let's get a claim started because I'm sorry. And another one is if you have a dissatisfied client. You're hired to photograph a wedding, but forget to take pictures of key family members. How many times has this happened? Where the bride and groom really wanted a photo of them and grandma and grandpa together, or whomever. But the day gets busy. Next thing you know, that especially if it's an elderly person, they tend to go home early, and you keep telling yourself, I'll get back to that, and all of a sudden that opportunity is missed. You did your best, but there were hundreds of people who requested to be in photos, and you missed a couple of them. Your client may make a claim against you for negligence regarding the failure to fully deliver the agreed upon photography services. So this is really, really, really important, because, like I said, when it comes to events like this, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And as a once in a lifetime opportunity, hopefully, the photographers out there are charging for such a service. All right, well, let's get to number 2, and this is general liability. General liability. This includes the main features of this liability coverage is bodily injury, defamation and libel, and property damage. So again, this is more, like the E&O provides one step of coverage. This general liability kind of takes it up a notch, and both of them work hand in hand together. Let's look at the bodily injury first. As a photographer, your job often involves equipment setup, and that can create a high risk environment for slips and falls. What would happen if the client you are working for tripped over a high piece of equipment that was set out for a photo shoot? General liability could protect you against third party claims for bodily injury and related medical expenses. Now, picture this. When I was doing some research and read this, I immediately went to like those photo walls, where you put on the goofy stuff, or just kind of the pose, just because of the sheer size of it. Now, I do know that a lot of photographers do have quite sizable tripods, but this was kind of the first thing that came to mind. So you as the photographer own this piece of equipment, and someone trips over it and is hurt. This is what would cover that. So again, might not be some things that you really think about right off at the start, but these are things that happen. Another one is defamation and libel. When you are a photographer, like I said, you are privy to a lot more exclusive access to the people in the event. Now, let's say the people that are in this event are kind of high profile. This is where this could really come in handy. You are hired to photograph a charity event, which features an appearance by high profile celebrity couples. Since it was a big job, you hired an assistant. During the event, the celebrity couple gets in an argument, which your assistant overhears and captures. The next day, the reports of the argument appear in the tabloids. And this could be whether it's in the paper, online, anything like that. Anything like that. The couple blamed your assistant and filed a lawsuit against your business. The general liability policy would be able to pay your defense costs as well as any settlement or judgment. Now, around here in Marcellus, is this something that happens often? Not really, but you never know when you're, let's go away from the charity event, but let's go back to a wedding. We don't know who our friends and family are actually related to. So this could really come in handy. And the last part of the general liability is property damage. It's property damage. And the example here is you're in a client's home to photograph a couple's engagement photos. You're working with an assistant, and obviously in all of these examples, the assistant is very clumsy. But you're working with an assistant to help with your equipment. Your assistant knocks over and breaks an inexpensive vase, which costs thousands of dollars. The property damage may be able to help cover the replace of the vase up to your policy limits. So, and it's not just limited to a vase. I mean, it could be anything, especially when you're going on site. Any of their belongings, if they're broken or something like that, this is where this coverage could come into very, very big play. Now, number 3. Now we've done professional liability, general liability. Let's go to a business owner policy. Now there's kind of a few layers to this one, where a business owner's policy could be a must if you yourself as a photographer have a studio. This would cover, especially if you own the studio. This would be where the building coverage would come in, the liability for said studio would be covered, and as well as property damage, your property damage. As a photographer, your largest investment is your camera and equipment. Protect that investment with camera equipment insurance, which can pay to replace the equipment if it's stolen or damaged. A lot of times we really don't think about it being stolen. It's more about the damage part. Having the right insurance for photography equipment can get your business back up and running quickly after a loss, because let's be honest, as a photographer, if you don't have your camera, if you don't have your lenses, it's kind of hard to be a photographer. This also includes not only cameras, but lenses, computers, and electronic storage devices. So again, going above and beyond just the camera lens type of thing, yeah, your MacBook that you do your editing on, any of the external hard drives that you have, any of that, monitors, anything that you use for your photography business. An example is you are finishing up a long day of photographing. I don't know why that word's so hard. Your client's conference. At the end, as you are loading your camera bag into your car, it slips out of your hand and hits the pavement. You open up your bag to find that your 70 to 200 millimeter lens and your portable hard drives are damaged. When you get home, you discover that you can't even pull the photos off your hard drive. And when it comes to this, especially when we're talking about your business property or your property coverage like this, we are taught that there are deductibles. So keep that in mind when you are setting up this policy, to where, how much stuff are we covering, and how much can you afford as a deductible if something like this does happen. Photos and videos can't be taken without the proper equipment. This business owner's policy would give you protection for your equipment, cameras, lights, computers, grip equipment often used to provide service to satisfy your clients. And last but not least, number 4 is cybersecurity. And this is becoming more and more of I'm not going to say a concern, but most of the time a necessity, especially when you're a business that does a lot of emailing, does a lot of, when you're a photographer, you probably spend more time sitting at your computer rather than taking the photos. So anytime that any of your especially, with these intimate moments of these events, these can be I'm not really sure what the word is. Let's see what my notes say. Photographers store large amounts of data on their computer, including high resolution images, client information, and payment details. That's where I was going with this. The cost associated with this damage, or this data being damaged, lost, or stolen, can be covered by cybersecurity insurance. In addition, any photographer who has a website, takes credit card payments, or stores customers' information should be protected by cybersecurity insurance. An example would be, let's say you as a photographer receive an email that appeared to come from a popular local wedding venue. The email includes a link to be included in the venue's preferred vendor list. You click the link, but it's fraudulent. The photographer or your computer froze, and and you receive a demand or ransom to be paid in Bitcoin, just went over 100,000, to allow you to access your files once again. Fortunately, you decided to pick up some cybersecurity coverage, and that the cybersecurity does include the services of breach response experts, who quickly determined that the ransom did not need to be paid and helped the photographer to restore your files. So that's kind of a lot. When you stop and think about, as a photographer, all I do is take pictures. But you really don't. Yes, you do take pictures, but there's so much more that you do. There's so much more exposure photography term, but there's so much more exposure that you have while doing this business or service or hobby. And all of the photographers I've ever met or talked to have had a bad experience with a client. And especially in a business like this, the last thing you want to do is have your reputation dragged through the mud. Now, does stuff happen? Do accidents happen? Do mistakes happen? Absolutely. But having coverages like this helps cover your ass, COA, as well as helps prevent, or gives an avenue of settlement to keep your reputation good, to keep your name good. Because let's be honest, in this day and age, your name goes a long way. Your reputation goes a long way. I guarantee at every wedding there's a kind of, I know someone who takes photos. Well, are they any good? can I see some of their work? And if you have the coverages that we talked about, you're going to be head and shoulders above someone who just does this as a hobby. And if you are doing it as a hobby, that's completely fine. But just know everything that we just talked about, you open yourself up to. So kind of keep that in mind as well. And I know not everyone that's going to watch this is a photographer, but I guarantee someone on your friends list is. So if this video doesn't pertain to you, please like and share it so that it gets more exposure. Again, photography term, but it can find the right people. And just watching this video might help someone avoid a huge situation that could be very easily fixed with one of these coverages. Now, where does that leave us now? Where does that leave us now? Well, we've had a handful of people come in and out of the stream, and none of them have questions. But I guarantee the people who rewatch this probably do or might. So here's how you can contact me. You can comment directly on this video. You can send me a Facebook message, or here is the office number and my email. I would be happy to assist any way that I can. And if I don't have an answer, we'll find you one. We'll find you one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that has been this week's edition of Tuesdays with Turbo. That's not on Tuesdays, but I'm still Turbo. And everyone be safe, stay warm, get out and your elderly neighbors or family members, help them dig out as well. And let's be nice to each other. And I will see you next week.